Either we heal as a team, or we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's the team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. It is February 26th, 2012. Welcome to the show. Today I have a jam-packed show for you, and because my guest has his own radio show to do right after mine, I'm going to make sure that I get him up right away. There's a few things I want to go over with you guys really quick, but I'm going to take care of that in the final segment of the show, okay, because it's just going to be you guys and me for the final segment. So I want to devote as much time as I can to my guest, so I'm going to get right into it. Without wasting any more time, my guest for today is somebody who helped wake me up to many things. And I'm enamored by the level of research he does for his work. It's very impressive. He's not one of these people that goes out and spends a week researching something and puts together a quick documentary and slaps it out on the internet. That's not how he rolls. And I really appreciate the work that he does, and I want to expose him to my listeners if you guys don't already know who he is. So he's a filmmaker, and he's also a radio show host. And he's got his own website, internet-based TV channel, just amazing. He's all around, media king, I guess you could say, over there in the UK. Christopher Everard.
Hello.
Chris, welcome to the show.
It's a great pleasure to be on air again with you. I very much enjoyed the last shows we did together. And, I'd like to say hello to everyone on Orion. It's the first time I've been broadcasting on the Orion network.
Well, welcome. We welcome you with open arms, my friend.
Thank you very, very much. I've been making a new film, like you were saying in your introduction. It's very kind of you to say those things about me. I've basically, since 2007, been putting together this new film, which is really, I don't like actually making documentaries unless everything that's in the film is corroborated or it can be verified. So basically, I collect photographs and documents and letters, and I go out all over the world filming footage. And, I get as much evidence and proof as possible. And I've been investigating millions and millions of dollars, actually, that have been spent every year by the Pentagon, training a troop of psychic specialists at Area 51 and also at Edwards Air Force Base. And this project has been headed up by the Air Force. And they have been investing, at the moment, the documents which I've got show that they've been spending at least $6 million a year training these psychics. And these psychics are using telepathy and psychokinesis and telekinesis, which is the power of moving objects with the power of your mind. And they are applying this paranormal art, if you like, to warfare.
Is this kind of like is this like a continuation of the experiments that they were doing that they based that stupid movie off of, The Men Who Stare at Goats, and all the MK Ultra mind control projects? Is this does this stem from that, or is this a complete individual thing?
The Men Who Stare at Goats was based on a book written by a British journalist called John Ronson. And he was the guy that basically went into Bohemian Grove with Alex Jones. And they made a show in England. And in actual fact, the whole Bohemian Grove situation where Alex Jones and his cameraman went actually inside Bohemian Grove, that was organized with John Ronson's television company called World of Wonder in England. And it was first broadcast in England. And John Ronson then went on to write a book called The Men Who Stare at Goats. And George Clooney was in that film. And it's this kind of funny ha-ha kind of, it's got lots of funny ha-ha moments in that film. But the research which I've been doing show that the voodoo priests, which are called the Juju priests of Haiti, have been paid quite a lot of money for the last 2 decades. And there have been special troops of Marines being trained by the voodoo priests in Haiti. And the Haitian voodoo experts have also been given, quarters, and they've been paid to live in the United States of America. And we are also sort of seeing the beginnings of telepathic kind of time travel experiments being done by the Air Force. And what they are doing is that they are training these people alongside groups of physicists who run particle accelerators. And they are using telepathy and the power of their minds to look deeply into the molecular structure of atoms as they are being bombarded and spun at incredible speeds through these underground particle accelerators. Now, this research is heading towards basically puncturing holes into different, what we call universal membranes.
This is kind of like a black hole that they were worried about over with CERN when they were playing with the particle accelerator over there?
Yeah, well, what happened there, this is going back about a year or so ago. I did cover that on my show. Stephen Hawkins, Professor Stephen Hawkins, and Roger Penrose. These are the 2 professors who are like the world's leading experts on black hole kind of research. And basically what it is that my new film, it starts off by describing the very, very latest kind of discoveries by Stephen Hawking and Professor Roger Penrose. At the moment, what they're saying is that there is not one universe. There are actually 11 universes. Each of these universes is held within a membrane, which they actually just call brains for short. Now, you can potentially puncture a hole from one of these membraned kind of universes to another. And in actual fact, we do see spiral kind of wormholes opening up in the sky all over the world. And that's what I'm covering in my film.
Oh, so it like those spinny the spirals that were over Norway and Russia. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with that little tantalizing tidbit because we're going to break. Stay tuned 3 minutes. Chris and I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, I lost my breath for a minute. Sorry about that. We are back. So you can kind of stay with us and what Chris is talking about and kind of understand where he's going with everything. I want you to go to his website, and he's going to give you the exact links and tell you where to look. He has a couple articles that are kind of like an addendum that you can use to go along with what he's talking about. So, Chris, the floor is yours.
Yeah. If you go to my blog, it's http://ChristopherEverard.blogspot.com. The second article down, it's called The Truth, the Whole Truth, and Nothing But the Truth About the Pentagon Spending Millions on Psychic Research. And there's a couple of articles actually on my blog. Quite frankly, I'm amazed that my blog has lasted this long. It's been going for about 9 months. And it's full of, articles which I've written in the process of making my new Spiritworld film. And there's just you can see on the blog how many people are visiting it. It's been up for less than a year. I think it's gonna, if it stays for the year, which I doubt whether it will last that long before they take it down. It'll get something like 200 million visitors in that year period. It's getting thousands of visits a day, and the Pentagon have been spending millions. I did actually know about all of this when I made Spiritworld Volume 2. And there is a separate Spiritworld website. What I do is usually when I make my documentaries, I deliberately set up a separate website for each of the documentaries which I make. And the reason I do that is because, I am basically upsetting a lot of powerful factions. And we were talking in the break, and there's people at NASA who know very, very well my research. And I've actually interviewed astronauts, and the astronauts themselves pass my films around between them, and they enjoy them. But the actual top brass aren't very happy about the kinds of things which I've been putting into my documentaries about the secret space program. And, obviously the Ministry of Defense are quite unhappy about the various revelations which I've had in my films about the Illuminati. So I do these blogs. I mean, if this one lasts for a few more months, then that's great. I've sort of got a huge kind of network, a global network of websites now. And in the old days, I used to fret and get worried when, I was hacked or a website went down. Quite frankly, now they'd have to hack a huge amount of real estate off of the internet to actually get rid of me. And I think that they've probably come to the realization that I'm not going to go away. And they've allowed this blog to survive for about a year now, which is good. So, if you visit it, you can see that there's people literally from all over the planet going onto the blog and reading up about all these millions of dollars that have been invested into what is essentially psychic warfare. And it's warfare. It's really skills which can be used on the battlefield and also during espionage campaigns. But the reason that I've put this information into my new Spiritworld film is because what we're seeing is we are seeing a new declaration of war, secret declaration of war, and it's not war on the physical plane, It's war in the spirit world. And what they're doing is they are basically meddling with the fundamental building blocks of how the world, atoms, molecular structures, everything that actually creates the life force is now being meddled with. And this started years and years and years and years ago. I'm talking about 80 or 90 years ago. They started to actually surmise how they could manipulate the spirit world. And, these are very, very difficult subjects to actually broadcast about and to sort of describe in a nutshell. But the ancient cultures all agree. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about Hinduism or Judaism or the ancient magical religions of ancient Iraq, Sikhism. It doesn't really matter. Buddhism. They all have a kind of common base. And that common base can be described in one word, which is spirit world. They all agree that the life force which animates our bodies is actually a force which comes from a common place. Now, in scientific terms, it used to be described, the spirit world used to be described as the ether, E-T-H-E-R. And
I've heard that used before. I've heard them say, it came from the ether or whatever. And if you look through scientific journals and stuff, like they use it in that kind of context. So, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So Sir Isaac Newton, for example, he was an alchemist. He's most famous for discovering the law of gravity and the forces of gravity. But at the same time, when you visit the various museums in London that have his memoirs and have his scientific records, you can see that everything that he was investigating was based on the predication that our bodies are animated by a spiritual life force, which is, if you like, independently inserted into our bodies as embryos before we are born. And the ether was really basically, it was a fundamental pillar of scientific thought right up till the point where we enter the era of Einstein. Now, Einstein kind of really sort of rocked the boat with everyone, and the ether was kind of forgotten and pushed aside, and things became more concerned, scientific research became more concerned with the nature and fluidity of space and time. And space and time are one continuum. So, for example, the further you get away from the surface of the planet, so that changes time. If you are able to actually travel at light speed, at the same speed as photons in a light beam, you'd be able to travel enormous distances. You yourself have not spent that much time in space traveling at that speed. But by the time you return back to England, all your relatives, your parents, everyone that you know would be dead and long gone dead, because the time that would have passed on Earth would have been a great deal more than the amount of time you spent traveling at the speed of light in the cosmos. So
the effects on your body, it would have been different because you wouldn't have been just the way time and everything changes the further you get away from the planet. This is trippy stuff, but this is stuff you need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, because this is some of the knowledge that these elites have. All right, we're going to get cut off by the break. Chris, stay right where you are. Ladies and gentlemen, don't move. We'll be right back. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. So, Chris, I want to get right back into it. This this puncturing holes into the theory of black holes and all this time travel and stuff, does that mean that we would be being able to travel interdimensionally, which even I know David Icke has talked about different dimensions and stuff for years, but even mainstream science is admitting that there's at least a fourth dimension. So would that be the time and space continuum that would actually, I guess, have something to do with ripping a hole through the fabric of time or whatever you want to call it and traveling into this other dimension?
Yes, that's exactly what's going on. And in my new film, Spiritworld, that's exactly what you see happening. And there are several research centers in Russia, and there's a research center in China, and there's also one out near Edwards Air Force Base, and there's a mobile research center that can actually puncture these kind of wormholes into the sky that's aboard an aircraft carrier that is stationed out off the coast of California. And in my film, you see these wormholes opening up into the sky. And there are several different ways that the Pentagon have worked out how to actually create these wormholes. Now, what you're dealing with is you're dealing with physical manipulation of particles. You're dealing with the physical manipulation of the actual atmosphere, and then low Earth orbit space, which is just above the atmosphere. But then this research, which they've been funding, is also dealing with psychic projection through these spiral-type wormholes which they're opening up. Now, the point of it is this, is that when the Europeans first went to South America and they went into the Amazonian regions, they had really the first opportunity to really discuss in depth with the shamans of the Amazonian, different kind of tribes down there. They had the first opportunity to actually discuss the true nature of the spirit world. And the South American shamanic kind of communities are, along with the Siberian shamans, they're probably the two most advanced communities in terms of having a real nuts and bolts, down-to-earth kind of understanding of exactly what happens to our spirits when we die, and what happens when a spirit comes from the spirit world and enters an embryo. Now, I'm turning the clock back now about 160 or 170 years. This information was fed directly back to the Vatican because Catholic missionaries were the major kind of people running the outposts in the Amazon. And what I've done is I went to Rome, and I've been reading up a lot of the very old Catholic memoirs and journals of the information which they got from the Amazonian Indians. Now, the Amazonian Indians, what they were describing is that your spirit can be killed, your spirit can be murdered in the spirit world by these black flying darts, which fly through the spirit world at the speed of thought. So if you think about one of these darts flying...
It's pretty fast.
Yeah. If you think about the dart flying and penetrating the spirit body of another being, it will. Now, there is a whole kind of unspoken art of warfare, shamanic warfare in the Amazonian region. And there's a British professor who has been studying these shamans called Neil Whitehead. He's a British professor, but he's actually based in the United States of America, and I've been reading and studying all of his books just recently. And this is very, very advanced psychic warfare that goes on amongst some of the tribes. When the tribes, excuse me, when some of the tribes try and pillage other villages, they not only attack physically, but they attack psychically as well.
Well, that's actually a pretty effective tool.
Yeah.
You have to be able to damage the spirit of your enemy as well as the physical body, or else you won't have a complete victory, a complete win, as it were.
Yeah. That's it. So this information was collected by the Vatican. And then what happened is that a French form of voodoo that comes from the border between France and Switzerland, actually people think voodoo is African. Voodoo is not African. It does not come from Haiti. It actually comes from France, from the valley of Vaudoun. And what it is that the slaves saw that the Europeans that were trading in coffee and tea and sugar and really raping India and Africa of all of these natural resources, the slaves saw that these people were very, very rich. They were very powerful. They could have anything that they wanted. And the slaves thought, well, what is the secret? And they came to the conclusion, well, the secret must be this form of magic, which is based on the grimoires, which came into medieval Europe. So what we saw the slave trade open up. It was basically run by the royal aristocratic elite, and the slaves were spread right the way across. They were taken from Africa. They were spread right the way across the world, really. They ended up in South America. They ended up on the islands of the Atlantic Ocean. They even ended up on some of the islands of the Pacific, because some of the Pacific islands were invaded by the French and the British. And what happened is that the grimoire, black magic, which had originated in Iraq and had been brought into medieval Europe, was then kind of transformed, and it was kind of readapted by the slaves, who were then spread around the world.
Chris, let me ask you a question. Does this stuff originating in Iraq have anything to do with why we blew the doors off the Iraq Museum in 2003 upon invading that country?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Iraq is a wholly fabricated the modern country of Iraq is a wholly fabricated artificial country that was created at the Foreign Office in London. And before it was created and it was even labeled Iraq, it was, the ancient kingdom of really the most powerful magicians, astrologers, and soothsayers that the world has ever known. And they were the tribes of Chaldea. And Chaldea was a province of ancient Babylon. So, ever since the time of Alexander the Great, the really, really rich, powerful Europeans, Alexander the Great came from Macedonia, which is the country just north of Greece. They have been trying to get into that area to try and learn the secrets of manipulating the spirit world. Now, those artifacts that were looted, they come from the Ubaid period. The Ubaid figurines are the things that you see in my film Secret Space. They are reptilian humanoid figurines, and these were worshipped. And these figurines are very, very strange things. And there were other figurines very similar to these called the Teraphim. Teraphim, the word teraphim means things of evil, and they were even used as dildos for ritual masturbation in strange sex rites throughout the Middle East. So all of this stuff is very, very much what the elite are very, very interested in.
Yeah, and that's why I threw that question at you, because I had a feeling it was connected. I kind of knew it was connected, but I wanted the listeners to hear it right from the horse's mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get cut off once again. We'll be back in 3 minutes, I promise. Stay tuned. We will be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Okay, I want to get right back into it because time is of the essence. So during the break, Chris and I were discussing Iraq a little deeper, and the connections, because there's just not enough time, even in 2-hour show, just to explain everything. So we were covering kind of the super smoking guns, I guess you could call it, of the invasion. And Chris actually blew my mind, as his information normally does, with a tidbit that I was just flabbergasted by. So go ahead and tell him what you were just telling me, Chris, about the jars that the Army officers found.
Yeah, what it is that I made a film called Brotherhood of the Beast, and it's the fourth film in this series of historical documentaries which I've been making about secret societies called the Illuminati. And in my film, I was actually given this footage by a guy who's an architectural expert who works for the BBC, and he was making a documentary about all the ancient buildings in Iraq. Now, remember, the ziggurats of Iraq predate the pyramids, okay? And they are basically pyramids themselves. And in this footage, you see pretty high up American officers getting hot and sweaty, actually breaking a wall down that's deep down in the basement of the Baghdad Museum. And this wall has deliberately been built to hide from the invaders the most kind of valuable, occultically valuable objects. And in the footage, in my film, you see them, they're breaking this wall down, and behind the wall, you see hundreds of genie jars. Now, these genie jars go way back to the time of King Solomon. They go way back to the time of the great, if you like, magical dictators of ancient Iraq, ancient Palestine as well. And the genie jars were used, what they used to do is they used to have magical ceremonies. They used to invoke demons and summon these demons by name. This isn't, something like the Ouija board where you're just asking for any old Tom, Dick or Harry spirit to turn up. Once they got the spirit into the what you call the triangle of art, which is this area that's inscribed inside the magic circle, they would then test the spirit, and they would interrogate the spirit to double check that this really is the demon that they're after. Then what they would do is they would actually entice the spirit to actually enter a specially made vessel. Now, sometimes the vessel looks like Aladdin's lamp. That's why you've got an Aladdin's lamp on the altar at the base of the owl at Bohemian Grove. But sometimes the vessel looks like an earthenware spherical pot. And that's what they were after. That's what the American military were after. And the way that you keep the demon in the pot is that there is a special sigil, a special symbol, which is stamped into wax, which is placed on the top of these genie bottles. Now, the advantage of having the demon or the genie in the bottle is that you do not have to keep going through the very, very complicated invocation process and then the interrogation process, because demons lie. Spirits lie. When you get a spirit coming through, it can tell you that it's the spirit of anyone that it wants to, and you have to, as a as a magician, make sure that you're working with the spiritual entity that you really want to work with. And in the basement of the Baghdad Museum, there's literally hundreds of these things, and they've all been shipped, or not all of them, but a lot of them have been shipped back to the United States on U.S. military carrier transports. And the next phase of my research really is to really find out exactly what's been going on. My hunch at the moment, I don't put hunches into my documentaries. I always try and, come up with a proper bit of proof. What I think is going on is that we are seeing a synthesis of real nuts and bolts warfare being combined with spiritual warfare. It's not going to be a case where somebody's going to get killed on a battlefield or some child is going to get shot through the head in some kind of house raid by the military forces. They then want to be able to have complete and utter control and domain over the spirit that has just been jettisoned out of that physical body. And they want to pursue those spirits into the spirit world, which used to be called the ether. Now, nuclear physicists and quantum physicists describe the ether. They call it the Higgs field. Now what they want to do is they want to be able to have complete and utter warfare in the spirit world as well.
What is the federal government calls that full spectrum dominance? Sky, internet, land, ocean. If they know there's another dimension, I'm willing to bet they'll stick their nose in it. Yeah, absolutely. So, what I was discussing before we had the break with voodoo. Voodoo is shamanism. People's ideas of shamanism are a bit kind of strange. You have all these people in Sedona who walk around and they say, "Oh, I'm a shaman," and they wear rainbow-colored robes and things like this. Well, those people don't like it when they see my films, and I point out that voodoo is also a part of shamanism. And, there's many different types of flavors of shamanism. And the reason that the military have been stationed in Haiti and have been really kind of absorbing all of the black arts of the voodoo practitioners is so that they can have dominion over people's spirits. And there will be, maybe it's already happening, there will be psychic task forces sent into the spirit world by the manipulation of the Higgs field, which is what we see going on right now. That's what those spiral wormholes are. They are opening up portals to be able to actually access all of the different aspects of the spirit world. And they're trying to, again, have full spectrum dominance, and everything's always war. Never let's open a gateway, maybe have some peaceful coexistence or try to explore the meaning of life or anything like that. No, everything is always war, death, control, killing. It's just, honestly, I don't know if these people come from a different planet, Chris. Honestly, sometimes I look at them and I'm like, you can't be human. Like we have to be a level up from them, and that's why they're so bent on eradicating us, because they are definitely not the next generation, the next step in evolution. Because if you evolve, you wouldn't be thinking like that. This is so, their thinking is so archaic. The stuff that they're into is just, it's unbelievable. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand that whether or not you think this information is real, it affects you whether or not you believe in it. If you might not believe, old people might not believe that the internet exists, but the internet affects them in certain ways, shapes, or forms of how they get their medication now, or how they get their Social Security check. So they might, that sounds like some sort of rumor or something. No, it does exist. It does affect them. So if you don't believe in something, just because you don't want to believe in it, or you choose to, it still affects you. So you need to know this information.
Yeah, I mean, in the other break, we were talking about, the sort of history of the royal aristocratic elite and how basically their modus operandi throughout the ages has been to kill and to dominate. And, we were talking about my film, Murdered by the Monarchy. And,
Great film. Ladies and gentlemen, just go to, you know what? Before I forget, because we got about a minute and a half before break, plug your website and where they can get all your films, because you have, I know they can get a bunch of them. So go ahead and give yourself shameless plugs. Okay, well, spiritworlddvd.com is where you can read reviews of my films about my research into the spirit world, shamanism, voodoo, all different aspects of manipulation of the spirit world, quantum physics. And this is all verifiable stuff. This is not pie-in-the-sky nonsense that's just been made up. So that's spiritworlddvd.com. And then my blog, christophereverard.blogspot.com, has got links to all my other films and also the Enigma channel as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to break. Support Chris's work. We'll be back in a few minutes with hour number 2. And when we get back, we're going to get back into the Iraq aspect of it really quick, because there's a few other interesting things there. So stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. Today is Sunday, February 26, 2012, and my guest is Christopher Everard. Now, the first hour, we've been covering the spirit world and trying to cover it, I should say, in a nutshell, because it's kind of impossible. But we've been kind of giving it a little glance, giving you people just a glimpse of everything. But I urge you to research this further, and the only way to do that is we mentioned about 4 or 5 different movies in the first hour. So going into break a couple minutes ago, I had Chris give out his website. I'm going to do it one more time right now, coming back in, so you guys can, again, write it down just in case you didn't get a chance to. So go get a pen and a piece of paper and write down. I'm going to have him give out all the info again. I urge you to go research what him and I are talking about. Don't just take my word for it. Don't just take his word for it. Go and do the research. And what's awesome about Chris and why I admire his work is because not only does he do a ton of research, but he'll tell you where you can go, here's the resources. Go look it up for yourself. And just like any good researcher should. So I admire that. Not many people like to do that. Some people like to pretend that, they figured it out by themselves for the first time, which is, most of us come across information that somebody else originally at one point or another wrote down, even if it was from 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. So you're not really the first person to figure it out. So, Chris, go ahead and give all your websites, everything out again one more time so people can go get your movies and check the stuff out. Okay, well, the new film, you can go to a website which I've set up that's got reviews of the new film, and also, my new film, Spiritworld, is actually the 3rd installment in this series of documentaries which I've been making for many, many years, and that's spiritworlddvd.com. And the new film, it covers all of those kinds of subjects which we've been speaking about in the first part of the show, but it also has some footage which I filmed in these ancient crypts in Egypt. And it talks about the psychic technology of the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. And psychic technology has always been one of the most valuable and hidden technologies of the royal political elite throughout the ages.
And during the break, we were talking about why so many children have been killed in this recent Iraqi campaign. I mean, you know, the death toll of children is very unusual. It's really far higher than anything that you can just put down to collateral damage. And when I was researching my film Secret Space Volume 2, I got into contact with a black magician who had seen the error of his ways. He used to work for a bank, one of the big banks, and the bank that he used to work for has now been absorbed by a really, really big bank in the communist China. And when you meet these people, you realize that they spend as much time in trance and as much time projecting their mind and their astral body into the spirit world as they do living in the physical world. When you meet a full-time occultist, you can see in the features of their face, in their expressions, that the life that they've led has been very, very unusual indeed. And what he told me is that unbeknown to these people in Iraq, and I'm talking about these children, they have blood running through their veins, which is an ancient legacy of a breeding program that happened thousands of years ago between these star gods, these beings that were worshipped and who told men in the ancient world, we come from the stars and we have come here to teach you alchemy, astronomy, different psychological and spiritual effects of certain plants. And there are people walking the streets of Palestine, which is now Israel, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, and different countries, Egypt, mostly in the Middle East, but also in Africa. I'm talking about Burkina Faso, Ethiopia especially. Now, these people in our modern world do not realize most of the time that they have this legacy within their blood of this breeding program that took place thousands of years ago. And we have in our histories and in our sort of legends many different names for these beings that came from the stars. And what we can see is that the museums, especially in the Middle East, are absolutely jam-packed with artifacts, especially these figurines, which we mentioned at the beginning of the show, which show beings which have human features mixed with amphibian features and also reptilian features. And it seems to me, and it came across very much in this conversation I had with this former black magician, this very high-up black magician, that children are being killed in the streets of Iraq and in, you know, Palestine. Just look at Palestine. It's an enormous genocide that's going on there. Simply because when you have a psychic tradition within a family, and we've all seen, gypsy, Romany kind of gypsy families, and sometimes they put out their adverts and they say, I'm the seventh son or the seventh daughter of a great psychic who came from, a faraway country. When you have a great psychic tradition where the techniques of going into trance, the techniques of hypnotism, the techniques of being able to recognize the traits and the character of certain spirits and certain ghosts and certain demons and certain angels, that lives in the blood, if you like. It becomes part and parcel of the character of those families. And I first realized this when I went into the Sahara Desert back in I'm just thinking now, it was 1984. I went into the Sahara Desert and I met these Bedouin herdsmen who live in these tents, and they're nomads. And the Bedouins are amazing people. I mean, they are a nation without recognition. They're spread right the way across North Africa. Nobody really even knows how many Bedouins there are in the world, but it's probably in its millions. And these people are a repository of this ancient psychic knowledge that the histories of the Middle East tell us came from a mingling of Earth people's genetic blood and a mingling with the blood from these beings that were worshipped as gods from the stars. And I believe that we're seeing an eradication of these people with this, if you want to call it Anunnaki blood. We're seeing that right now. It's happening. And there is no other real explanation of why so many children are being killed in this Iraqi campaign that's been going on now for more than a decade.
And you know, I had mentioned to you earlier about the whole bloodline thing, how it's interesting that there's certain people they went after, and, you know, this guy's a terrorist, must kill him. And without, you know, who knows if he was or not, but the bloodlines, it's interesting that these people, their bloodlines go back to, you know, ancient people in Babylon. And then I told you about a video that I had seen where the guy explains that, you know, these are the quote-unquote insurgents, and they're talking about the New World Order, and they know the citizens of this country are, you know, being lied to by the media. It's just, the truth is stranger than fiction, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we're going to break. Stay tuned. Chris and I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And Chris has gone out of his way to find a special treat for you. Since we've been talking about the spirit world and black magic and some of these rituals and ceremonies that Chris was talking about, he actually found the audio from a black magic ritual.
Yeah, I'm not going to play too much of it because these things are deliberately designed to invoke you know, very, very bad forces. What you're going to hear is you're going to hear a recording of a group of black magicians that are associated with the Ordo Templi Orientis. The OTO has its roots in pre-Nazi Germany, and they are invoking Tiamat. And Tiamat is this queen of chaos, a spiritual queen of chaos, if you like. And this recording was first brought to my attention by Chad Buchanan, who was a guest on my radio show a few months ago. And we did a whole interesting kind of show all about the occult and the Ordo Saturnalis, who were involved in the creation of a film, a silent movie called Nosferatu. And the people that made Nosferatu were not messing around. They really were black magicians, and they put black magical kind of sigils and symbols into the actual Nosferatu film. And well, I'm going to play you a bit of this. Just tell me if you can hear the audio fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is our intent.
Sounds perfect.
To summon and call the snake goddess of chaos, Tiamat. This is our will. Enki, Lord and Master of Magicians, I summon thee to aid in this work. Come with these words. Saraso Zevan, Neto Banzan, Taras Nazan, Enki, Naras Osasman, Tero Deak, Zotos, Enki.
Now, I'm just going to move the recording on a little bit so you can hear how it develops.
To the Kabbalists, They divulge what I said. As aims of limitless light, it expands a tensor of Kether. The interaction of the conscious thought was the interaction of the primal sexual act, when the great magician impregnated the womb of the universe and gave birth to form. Soon, a few have already requested to join. That is for you to decide. But remember, it is better to have a small jewel than a massive crown. Do not seek just for the sake of fucking seeking. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
That's like a whole kind of 3 or 4 hours.
That's some really disturbing, creepy crap. And interesting, they said Enki. Isn't that the name or close to one of the name of one of the Anunnaki?
Oh, it is the Anunnaki. They are, consider Enlil and Enki, who are in the Mesopotamian Sumerian legends, as, these powerful beings from the stars. And Tiamat is like this queen of chaos, who is the snake goddess. And I played that simply to show people that there are full-time occultists out there in the world. My new film shows that the Pentagon have invested millions of taxpayers' money into developing a troupe of psychic soldiers, if you like. And they are using some of these ancient rituals, some of these ancient sigils and invocations, like you've just heard, to really add this extra spiritual dimension to warfare. And it's very, very serious. And in actual fact, it's a subject which, I never hear it discussed. We're really, really pulling the covers off of something which, up until this point in human history, has not been known about.
Yeah, this is stuff that most people, they look at you and they're like, what? Huh? And again, you have to understand this stuff, even if you don't believe in it. A lot of people are, they're stuck with this hardcore religious dogma, that they have. And doesn't matter whatever religion. I'm not picking on any one individual. So, you're, no matter what religion you are, some people I see, they get stopped by their own, their beliefs only allow them to go so far, and then anything after that is just hinky and crazy. You have to put that aside and try to understand at least in the context that it should be understood, the entire picture. You don't have to believe in it, but what you do have to do is you have to respect and understand the fact that the people that are pulling the strings of power right now, they believe in this. So it doesn't matter if you don't. And there's a lot of evidence to say that a lot of this is, completely accurate to some of the stuff that they talk about. But without even getting into the belief aspect of it, of whether or not you choose to believe it, they do. And you need to understand where they are mentally to understand why they do the things that they do. Otherwise, people don't get, why they would pull off 9/11. I hear it all the time. Why would they kill over 3,000 of their own people, Popeye? Well, because they're sick and they're twisted and they think they're doing some ritual or whatever other reason, amongst other reasons. They don't have empathy. If you look up psychopath in the dictionary, there's they are the definition of psychopath. It says, pretty much, to paraphrase it, somebody with no empathy and that has no empathy. That's these people. How do they get rid of their care? They go to the woods and they worship a stone idol. And what happens to be at the base of this idol? But one of these jars that Chris was talking about. So you can see this is more than just releasing care and some ceremony. You can see that spiritually they're sacrifice. Even if it's artificial, they're sacrificing that effigy, and they're maybe in mock sacrifice, but they're pulling in that energy. That's what they think they're doing, and that's twisted.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd just like to say that in the first documentary I made about the spirit world, I do cover the subject of 911. And if you look upon 911 as being a kind of black sacrifice, where all these innocent people are jettisoned into the spirit world en masse in one go, you can imagine what a kind of impact that has on the spirit world. I mean, all these ancient cultures talk about the wheel of life. And as you die, your spirit travels into the spirit world. You stay in the spirit world for a while. And then, if it's your life path to come back, your spirit will return into the body of a new embryo. Now, in the case of 911, what we really saw is a kind of spiritual holocaust with 3,000 people dying within an hour or so of each other.
Unbelievable. Just incredible information, ladies and gentlemen. Even though I know a lot of this stuff, just talking about it out loud with Chris just, makes your head go, woo! But it's important to know this. All right, we're going to get cut off again. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the final segment. And we're limited on time because actually Chris does a live show in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So this is going to be the final segment with him. I'm going to give him the floor in a second, and he's going to wrap up everything. And then I'm going to have him give out all of his website information one more time. And then, I'll finish up with my final thoughts in the last segment. But go ahead, Chris. The floor is yours.
Well, I've really enjoyed doing this show with you. Like you say, I actually do a live show every Sunday. It's the Sunday edition of the Truth Frequency, and I have to start that in about 20 minutes' time. Just what I'd like to say to people is that psychic manipulation is something which is happening, and it's being done with technology, such as broadcast towers. We are really walking around and living and sleeping and eating and breathing this enormous worldwide soup of digital microwave transmissions, shortwave, longwave, frequency modulation, FM frequencies, and ultra-high frequencies, UHF. And there's a great book. It's called The Ether of Space, written by Sir Oliver Lodge. And it was written about 90 years ago. And this book really shows you that there is a very, very real risk that the ether, the spirit world, is going to get scrambled by all of the electromagnetic pollution. And we've entered into a phase now where there is psychic warfare on the people, and there are signals being broadcast 24/7, which are called woodpeckers. And you hear some of them in my new film, Spiritworld, and they're being broadcast by broadcast towers which are all over the world. And this is deliberately being done to scramble people's life path, to scramble their kind of innate spirituality. And, you see serial killer crimes on the TV sometimes. You think, how does a person get to the point of depravity where they can do that? How does the Pentagon and the Ministry of Defense get to the point where they can actually order high-altitude bombing, carpet bombing of countries, of peasants, basically, and they know that they're going to kill lots of children? This kind of scrambling of the psychic ether has a lot to do with the control of people's minds. And, you can read up on my film. I've got a website specially made for my new film. It's called spiritworlddvd.com. And I really do appreciate all of the people that support my filmmaking. It's not cheap, actually, doing all this traveling. And I've just come back from Egypt. And,
you do a lot of investigative work. Like, you don't just write about it and research it. Like, okay, for example, really quick, ladies and gentlemen, he's got a movie about the assassination of Princess Diana, and I say the assassination because she was assassinated. And then she was ritualistically finished off. And there's no other place that you'll get the reality of what really went on other than Chris's movie, and it's like 2.5 hours long. And
it's 4.
Okay. So there you go. See, I was wrong. It's 4 hours long. I'm sorry, my bad. It's 4 hours long, and if you watch the entire thing from end to end, you'll just be flabbergasted at the amount of information and the lengths he went to in that movie. He bought the same exact type of car that she was driving in, so he could see, he could drive the distance and everything else, and he could check to see how it handled. I mean, that's investigative research. That's going above and beyond. Most people would sit at their computer or sit at their desk and read, whereas you actually go beyond it. So you do deserve the help. I will say that's why I admire your work, Chris, because you really do investigative journalism. Buying the vehicle that she was in to drive it around and see how it handles, and then drive times and everything else and the distance. That's just incredible.
Yeah, I actually did that exact same journey in 6 minutes, and you see that in my film, in the middle of Paris rush hour traffic. And depending on which of the coroner's reports you believe, the ambulance took between 1 hour and 15 minutes and 1 hour and 40 minutes to do a 6-minute journey. I actually busted the gearbox, kept driving the thing, matching the speeds and everything going through that tunnel. But I mean, that's what you need to do. I go directly to the source. I am very disappointed, actually, that there's a lot of books being published nowadays, a lot of films and video clips on video sharing websites. So just twaddle, really, of things that sensationalist kind of claims made by people who are just trying to kind of dupe the public, really. And there's people making claims about the moon being made of cheese or whatever, and you can't verify that stuff, not unless you're somebody like Sir Richard Branson and you've got your own spaceship. So I always go directly straight to the source, and that's really what all my films are about.
And again, that's why I admire your work, because your stuff is so in-depth. And the only thing I know about the moon is they hit it with a weapon about, excuse me, about, 2 years ago, and it rang like a bell.
Yeah, the sine wave vibrations that they got from the little sensors showed that there was a lot of caverns in the moon. But, that's not really any kind of surprise, because asteroids are also fairly hollow as well.
Yeah, science is interesting. Whew, sorry about that.
Now, I just before I go, I'm actually doing a series of star camps where I'm teaching people ancient astrology during the day, and then at night I'm teaching them astronomy. And I'm going to launch doing these camps later on this year. And people that come along to the camps will be taught how to read the movements of the planets, the stars, and the significance of conjunctions, and giving people an insight into the astrological kind of, I suppose it's an astrological tradition of the Illuminati. And it's the only course in the world where you'll be able to come along and you'll be taught astronomy alongside astrology. Because, I think this is a very, very important thing. There's a lot of rubbish books that have been published about 2012 being the end of the world and all this kind of thing. And we're going to start teaching groups of people how to predict the future and how to read the movement of planets and stars, constellations, conjunctions, eclipses, how to draw horoscopes, and really give them an insight into this astrological technology that's been used by the elite throughout the ages.
And this is the knowledge, this is the stuff that they have access to that we don't. And that's why we're not playing on an even playing field right now. I mean, some of us are, but the general public isn't. And that's why I think people should support your work. And, you know, if they can, if you can't afford it, whatever. But if you can, if you want to give somebody a gift for Christmas or you know, whatever holiday, whatever birthday's coming up, I would suggest Mother's Day, Father's Day, whatever. Give them some of Chris's movies. You know, get Secret Space, get the Secret Space series, get the Spiritworld series, you know, his new one, his old one, and get the, if you can, get the Illuminati series and the Princess Diana ones. Get them all. I can't really say one is better than the other because they're all so packed with information. You're just like, oh my God. And it's going to take time. But that's why you have such a vast archive.
Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. I love doing these broadcasts, and let's do another show together. And maybe we can do a show completely about a whole another set of subjects or something like UFO research or something.
Yeah, we can get into. I love getting into the stuff that nobody likes to talk about. And that's one of the reasons I love doing my radio show. Yeah. And I know you enjoy it because not many people are willing to discuss this. So we can get into, we can cover UFOs, we can cover whatever. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave you with that for this segment. You can just think about that. Chris and I are going to do a future show, and we'll leave it open-ended. We'll leave you drooling and wanting more. So I want to thank Chris for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned for the final segment.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the final segment of today's episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Today's episode is a perfect example of why I call my show Down the Rabbit Hole, because we go where no others are willing to go. And you can see spontaneously, Chris and I decided we're going to do another show, and we're going to cover a few other subjects that do touch on what we were discussing tonight, but it's a different portion of the puzzle. So this was one piece, and we're going to discuss another piece. Chris's work spans, at least I would say now, probably at least 10 years. If he were on with me, he'd probably correct me and tell me the exact amount, and I'm probably wrong. It's probably actually more. But I will say at least 10 years worth of research. I mean, the amount of research he did actually more than that, because Diana's been dead over 10 years, and he started researching her death, at its inception. So, okay, there you go. Over 10 years worth of research he's done that have gone into his movies, his website, his internet TV. Just incredible amounts of information. You couldn't get it into a 2-hour show. Impossible. He has, if you go to Oracle, he's got archives. You can pull his archives. I suggest you grab all of his old archives, put them on your MP3 player, and listen to them. I mean, that's what people do with all of our shows. That's what's awesome about having, not only having a live app like TuneIn, but having the ability to rip something and put it on a cell phone or an MP3 player. You can just take that knowledge with you, and while you're sitting at the doctor's office, you can listen to a show. Bring a little notepad and a pen, and then you can just take notes of what you want to look up, and then you go do research on it. That's what I've done. I mean, I've done some of my best research while doing, multitasking. So everybody says, I don't have enough time in the day. Multitask. Make enough time. Figure out a way to do it. And that's one way to do it. Use the technology to your advantage. Okay, so I want to cover something really quick. Everybody asked me about this post I put up on Facebook yesterday. We were taken down, not FederalJack, but the server itself that it sits on, was taken down because of Obama's Libya.com. Not many people know this, but we created that to expose the war crimes that were going on in Libya, being backed by NATO, and they were being perpetrated by these Al-Qaeda, rebels, that they were rounding up any Africans, any black Africans, and killing all of them. I mean, there's video footage of it. Even the mainstream media has had to admit it. Of course, they edited most of the video. It's mind-blowing. Anyway, we made this website. We didn't take credit for it. We made it a separate website just to host videos that Susan Lindauer, now you've heard Susan actually and I talk about it once or twice on air. We've made reference to it. And Susan had gotten us these videos that were taken by people, family members of the victims, and we put this website to show the world what the truth was, and it went viral. And it got attacked once. They destroyed it. We rebuilt it, and it went, it continued to go viral. And I guess about a week ago now, one of the listeners, one of my followers on YouTube, and from FederalJack.com, sent out a link to one of the videos, and it was of a little boy who was impaled on a metal pipe, and it was coming out of his abdomen. And while he was laying on the gurney, and it had been done intentionally by these Al-Qaeda rebels that we backed. And when he was on the gurney, you could see him. He was completely naked. And this guy screamed that it was child porn and sent it out to, I guess he's part of Anonymous, or there's millions of people. So I guess there's really no centralized group. Who knows if there is or not? But he does things under the guise of Anonymous, which a lot of people do. And he sent it out to his friends, and they proceeded to attack the server without doing any research on it. He didn't believe the lady that sent it out. He thought she was lying. He said, "How could you ever get information about war crimes going on in Syria?" And they actually they thought it was Syria, not Libya, because she sent me the messages. So long story short, the poor woman that released this video to try to get the truth out, they doxed her. All her information is now out all over the internet, her phone number, her email, her home address, all this stuff, who she really is. Who knows what kind of stuff that she could have exposed, people she might have pissed off. That puts her life in jeopardy. Now, the reason I get pissed at this, not only was FederalJack affected because the server was taken down because the people that the hosting company got a complaint, and they said, by law they shut the server down completely, kill all access to it, and then they go investigate it. And if it's not true, they put it back up. Well, within about 2.5, 3 hours, it was back up, and we had an email apologizing, and they said, obviously this isn't child porn. We understand you're showing the effects of war. But because the child is naked, could you please do us a favor while we finish trying to figure out this case? Could you remove the video? Well, because of the damage it already caused, one of our IT guys just took Obama's Libya down completely, removed it. So the videos still exist, but the site is now gone. And it had to be removed because people that want to get involved, quote unquote, and help out are so misinformed that they just jump on a bandwagon and do things without investigating anything. And we were wondering why our server was getting slammed for like a day and a half. Now we know, because this kid had initiated with some faction of hackers that go by under the banner of Anonymous to attack our server. All because nobody bothered to actually investigate and go click on the page or do a little research and find out whether or not these videos, where they came from. Why bother to do that? They just jumped on the bandwagon. So it pisses me off because this is a perfect example of how abuse, throwing labels on people. Now, this is someone that supposedly is involved in Anonymous, or runs under the Anonymous banner, I should say. I shouldn't say involved with them. I should say runs under one of their banners, under their name. And he spreads to other hackers that he knows to attack a server at will. And all these people that think they're beating the system act like sheep, and they groupthink, all attack without even bother going and saying, well, maybe we should investigate this because maybe if we attack this, we're going to be removing evidence of war crimes against innocent people. And that's what's happened now. The end result is that there are innocent people who now their story might not be seen. I mean, it's already been seen by millions of people around the world. But now there's people that maybe they didn't know about it, won't be able to see those videos because they're all removed. And why? Because people overreacted. And the same guy that wanted, to take the FBI down on his Twitter account, you can see it says, in the same breath, he's saying, "Oh, we should report this woman to the FBI for spreading child pornography," and it's not child pornography. Even the hosting company said it. After investigating it, now they're investigating to see who made it, so they can go, find out why they made this false claim, and who knows what they'll do. I don't know what the hosting company does. Perhaps maybe they go after him legally. I doubt it, but whatever. I mean, the hosting company was like, "Ooh, we're so sorry." But do you see how easy it is for them to label something that they maybe make someone uncomfortable? I mean, how narrow-minded. And the person that the messages that they've sent me from this poor woman sent me from that they've spammed her with, like, "Oh, we're going to get you, blah, 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 blah." They don't believe her that it's war crime footage. For some reason, they're convinced it's Syria and that it's not Libya. And they actually believe that Syria, they believe the mainstream media hype that, oh, the poor Syrians are being oppressed by an oppressive, brutal government. And I'm not doubting that people are dying, but we're not getting the truth out of there. And the people that have gone in there, like Tarpley, he's talked about a completely different thing. And even some of the mainstream networks, you've seen people say, Syrians say, they don't want outside intervention. Stay the hell out of their country. The media took a pro-Assad rally. They were caught. You can see it. They were caught editing it to make it look like it was anti-Assad, and it was actually a pro-Assad rally. They've done this before, ladies and gentlemen, and unfortunately, this group of hackers, who obviously have some sort of skill, they didn't take the site down. They were able to slow everything down, but they weren't able to take it down. It's a testament to my guys. But they attacked. The point is, they just jumped on a bandwagon and attacked. That's groupthink. Again, that's another form of groupthink, and that's very sad. So, long story short, we got it fixed, and obviously, because we don't want to, my IT guy said the importance, the main focus is FederalJack and all the information and everybody that goes to it. So because of everybody that uses that site every day, and, we removed Obama's Libya. So the evidence is gone. It was up for almost a year. I hope as many people saw, the truth as they could. I did it as a favor for Susan Lindauer and the people that were risking their lives going over to Libya in this fact-finding mission. Tarpley was part of this mission, and he didn't send us the stuff, but this was a big mission that a lot of people took part of, and people involved in it got out videos to Susan that needed to get out. And then we were able to, get them out to the world so they could at least see the truth. Unfortunately, it's gone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of time. Thank you for tuning in today. It was an epic, epic show. I promise Chris and I will do something together soon. Make sure you stay tuned for Joe Joseph's show. And then also, if you get a chance, make sure, like I said, Chris's archives, so you can listen to them at a later date. All right, later on, guys. I'm out.